It's tough, guys. Sorry, I didn't realize that ran out right there. But I'm looking around, reading stats and figures as we're about to jump into what the last couple weeks have been like as a Roma fan. And in anyone's history, I can't even say my history as a fan, your history. Statistically, this is Roma's worst start ever to a campaign. And that is shocking on many fronts, considering that this is the team with the third highest payroll in the league. This is a squad which has Paulo Dybala, who is one of the most talented. If you take away Lionel Messi, and in the top five of the most talented players of his generation, you have Lukaku arriving, who is a sensational striker, who I think is top three striker, maybe first or second. He could even be considered the second best in the league. I think you got to give it to Vlahovic at this moment in time. Maybe you do give it to Lukaku. Cristante, Paredes, Spinazzola, Rick Karsdorp, Chris Smalling, Indica, who is rated as one of the better center backs, young center backs in world football still at this moment. And it's like, how did Roma get to this spot? How did things go so bad that right now we're looking at a team which is, I'm not even going to check, below 15th place, right? Who suffers defeats at not at teams like Inter or Milan, yes, Milan or Juventus, but Verona and Genoa. And now this upcoming weekend, they're going to have a chance against Frosinone. And I'm like, you lose against these teams and it's a disgrace. And at the very least, we see the squad and the manager go up to the fans after the match against Genoa, the Settore Ospiti, the guests, and go and show whatever. They make a gesture, they show up physically, and put their hands up as a way of like an excuse, as a way that they understand that the way how the fans feel. And it's not a situation you ever want to be in as a player, but it's inexcusable, I think, for everybody. I don't think you can absolve any one entity from where Roma are right now. If you want to talk about Mourinho or any player, whoever it is, it's a collective, and there is no scapegoat. And before we get to the questions, though, I think I just want to go over the interview real quick, and then we'll take it from there. Today we have Mats Campea, who will be joining us. He's waiting in the wings right now, as just right before we go over the press conference. And I'm just going to navigate to that on my Twitter. But last night my flight landed, and I was unable to see the scoreline at all. I was able to get in touch with the WhatsApp group for the starting lineup, and I was like, okay, they look pretty good. Christensen's in, Spinazzola, like fine on the wings. Midfield looks solid. Cristante, Paredes, and Pellegrini was back in the lineup. I'm excited. I see Indica get the start. I'm like, okay, this could be good. Like Dybala, Lukaku, which we've all waited for. And I get home and I text the Roma Club New York chat, and I'm like, what's the final score immediately? It's like 4-1. I'm like, what do you mean 4-1? Are you joking? Like, this is a sick joke. And I think that maybe I have like a reputation for always being positive. I think that sometimes it's not just positive, but trying to understand and put things into perspective. But this, on an equal tone, this loss and this awful start puts things into perspective as well, that it's not just about what you say, but actually about what you do and how you show up and your attitude and individual errors. And Roma could be good and be better if this, if that, but there are no more times for if. There has to be an immediate response. You don't lose 4-1 against Genoa. I don't care if you're playing your Primavera squad. I don't care who's there. That doesn't happen. Not against the team that just come up from Serie B. Talk about payroll, the players that they have, Roma's injuries, whatever, because that's the truth. There is no alibi here. It's not good enough. Roma needs an immediate response. And now I've got this up. I think let's take a look. By the way, guys, help me out here and send this to your Romanisti friends, whoever you've got, whoever you talk to, whether that's Reddit or Big Soccer. Most people know that I'm the moderator on Roma's Big Soccer section. So yeah, send this so we can get a little bit of life in here, a little bit discussion, a little bit, I know Marco is probably going to join in. He's going to say, I told you so about Mourinho. But we start off with the first question here, which was to DAZN. And the reporter says, today practically nothing went right, even the attitude. He says, I apologize, but I don't have much to say. He said we started badly. The goal is as bad as the one that we had in Verona. We reacted, we drew, but after the equalizer, Llorente had an injury. And then that's the modification where Cristante comes on with the 2-1 with Mancini booked, and with the profile, he's saying like how the referee was. We thought it was the right to change him, and we improved. Then the offside goal arrived or happened, and I felt on the bench that the equalizer was going to come. They were playing in a low block. We had the ball. We were dominating. We had, even though not too many great opportunities, they closed us down, and our subs were all players. He said, giocatori che hanno giocato dentro, I think something like that. I don't know what he meant by dentro, like in, or if he said like all the substitutions were in. He said then at 3-1, it was game over. 4-1, yeah, with Messias scoring at the end. It's then mentioned by the reporter, says, you lost your solidity, meaning the structure. Roma was known as this defensive fortress the past 2 years, but now what's going on is the Mourinho third season curse proving to be true. He says it's true without a doubt. People talked about Ibanez's mistakes with some situations that became iconic, like those derby goals. But he had incredible defensive solidity. We have a history with Smalling, and you can see how many games we won without him, which is very little, actually. To say that we lose solidity, but without him, it's not right. So he's saying what he means here is that, yeah, okay, we do lose that solidity, but it's not good enough to just be like, oh, without Chris, it's not a valid excuse that just because Chris isn't there, Roma are able to just let in these goals. He's like, no matter who you have in or out of the defensive, you shouldn't be letting 4 goals in. And before I continue reading, the marking is atrocious. It's below Serie A level, guys. Indica, okay, you got to give him time, but now we see off a corner kick again for the 3rd goal. Like, come on, man. Solidity is the consequence of team spirit and important collective work with the lost ball. We have lost a bit of this. Every shot on goal, we score goals. Or he's actually, what he means is not that we score, but we let in goals. And I'm not talking about Rui. I'm talking about the situation. At the moment, it's like that. On the first shot, goal. On the second, 2. The same happened in all the matches against Torino as well. When they arrived, they scored. We feel this. He's saying, like, we feel this. Like we're getting unlucky. Here it comes down. That's down to individual errors. How can you not look at the rankings? And this is quoting him from the second to last post conference that he gave, not this one, but the one before. He says, it's Roma's worst start. It's also the worst start of my career, but I think it's the first time in Roma's history that there have been 2 Europa finals in a row. So he's trying to like cover up and say, it's not all bad. Look, Roma have gotten so far in European competition. Yeah. I think Roma should have been in the Final Four, though, of the Europa League. They had the quality. The biggest dogs in that competition got crossed out. Like, it was Roma's to win on injuries. And Roma did win. And Mourinho coached a great match for that on record. I thought that game was approached very well. Roma were super unlucky to lose that game, and it went to penalties. So let's not forget about that. But at the same time, I would have liked him to address that there is an issue and that your worst Serie A start in history, the club is 96 years old. So put that into perspective. Is the group strong enough to get out of this situation? He says, it's the group we have, and we have to go out with this. There's no transfer window. No one arrives. No one leaves. It's the squad we have with its quality and its problems. There's no time to cry. We will do it internally because it hurts the heart. Also because of my relationship with Roma's fans. It hurts me even more. It's not just a personal thing, but a general thing. Tomorrow we are there working, and the next game is 3 points, not 7 to 8. But it's a very, very important game. What he's saying here is you got to take one game at a time. It's not that Roma could just jump back up into 4th spot and get that chance, that they're going to get 8 points out of one game, right? But it's just the match in front of you. That's the only one that you can play. And now we go to the press conference. How do you explain? He says, negative start. We lost the ball in the build-up phase. It's not what we did in training. Then there was the goal. Then we had that positive reaction, but then Llorente's injury forced us to make an important change with Cristante dropping back. He said the second goal is something which happened of the same kind. We lost the ball in the build-up phase. This actually came from, I didn't like how far Dybala was dropping back. If Roma are playing this 3-5-2 or 3-4-2-1, I don't understand why Dybala has to be the guy that's dropping back. Okay, because of his technical ability, because he can dribble, he can take players on. But Roma lose so much by having him drop into those spaces. I think that should have been Pellegrini. I think there should have been a better movement with overloads and triangles and diamonds in order to facilitate Dybala to get further up the pitch on the right wing and to have been a scoring threat. Because so few moments of the match did I see him actually get into space where he could have really punished Genoa. Okay, he says Lukaku's offside goal. I thought the equalizer could have come, but it didn't. Is there a physical issue? And then he talks about the injuries. Yesterday, another 4 to 5 injuries. When there's this accumulation, it translates into injuries or a lowering of intensity. He's saying that he has to bring in players who don't have as high of intensity. He says, I'm not saying it's wrong, but if you see Dybala, who has played 2 games in a row a few times in the last 10 years, and he played again with 48 hours between them, working like the others, it's not a physical issue, but multifactorial. Like, it's not just physical, but it's also mental. It's mental fatigue. It's emotional. He's asked also, or mentions, I should say, that the athletic trainer at Roma is fantastic, one of the best he's had in his career. And this is the same group which had Roma's players in the 2 finals, one at Budapest last year and the one in Tirana with the Conference League final. And that Aouar and Azmoun still need some time to practice to get up to snuff, as they say. About the players going under the curva, which they did at the end, which is what I included in this post here. I felt that this picture was impactful. He says that the fact that the players went there, and also me and the staff, was a matter of respect. The fans don't need me to talk a lot because they know how I feel and what I'm thinking. They know my pain isn't personal, isn't just personal, but also professional, and gives them a shout out of respect. He says what I expect from the players now is that beyond respect, which is the minimum, is that Sunday you go out and you win this. You go and win the 3 points, kind of echoing that, not 7 or 8 points, but go out and play the game in front of you. Same type of approach here. I'm going to conclude this with the last paragraph, and he says, we're at home. We will play with the fans, and it'll be better for us. If the fans have a negative reaction, we will have to have the courage to play with this extra pressure, meaning if they come on the pitch and the fans start booing, which I don't expect, because we have the utmost respect for them, that which is untouchable. The players went there today not because I told them. It was their initiative. They know what it means to be a Romanista. Even those who arrived this year understand it. This is not a question. There is no need to apologize or say anything more. We are Roma fans and we are professionals. It is our life. And the pain for us is even greater. It is double. But we have to go there on Sunday against Frosinone, eye to eye. And we're going to end the interview here. We've got a bunch of comments coming in. We're going to get to all of them as Matt joins us here. And he's in the stage. What is going on, Matt? It is nice to see you, my friend.
Yeah, you too. Hope your vacation was good. Sorry that the boys let you down on your way home, but hopefully the rest of the vacation was good.
Thanks, man. What's I was seeing you mentioned a couple things about how it's not just one issue, in that you can't just say it's coaching, you can't just say it's players, but how you feeling after this? Is it all doom and gloom?
Overall, no. I think right now it feels like doom and gloom, and I think everyone's right to feel doom and gloomish. But I think there is stuff to look forward to. It is still early, and we can start pulling out a bunch of examples of teams who, had a rough start and then finished well. Overall, no, I don't think it's doom and gloom long term, but I think we all have every right to feel like garbage, because it just kind of feels like you're saying, like it feels like nothing is really going well. It feels like the tactics are generally there, but then there's other things that really aren't. We're not making passing movements like we do, or like we should, given the personnel that we have. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. The one thing I also wanted to mention too is tactically that space. But have you noticed that in between the midfield and the defense, without Matic, and I know, of course, we can mention Paredes is brought in to fill that
Mhm.
role, but it just seems like there's such a big space. Who's calling me? I'm getting a call. Is that you or me? No, it's
No,
actually my grandma.
that's not me.
Okay, I have to put this on. Do not disturb.
Yeah.
Sorry, grandma. I'll call you back later. Um, anyway.
She wants some of the action too. She really wants to share her thoughts, clearly.
Yeah, she's gonna tell me. She's like, "Why do you root for this team?" She's gonna yell at me.
Yeah.
Now,
I
shout out
can't
to my
not.
grandma who got me my second Totti kit ever. My
Oh,
grandparents went out
beautiful.
to Rome and got me one in like 2002.
Oh, that's my favorite jersey.
Yeah, the blue one. But
Yeah, beautiful.
it's such a gap tactically that I don't know how Roma can continue to play
Mhm.
like this, because they're gonna keep leaking in goals if Smalling's not there. Who, yeah, like with him and without him, statistically, Roma are a much better team when he does play.
Mhm.
And I think he also takes that extra step up where if there is no defensive midfielder, he has the zonal awareness to cut off that big pass where he can step. And
Yeah.
sometimes he gets caught out for it, right? But what do you, and Mourinho mentions now that there is no mercato. Roma can't go and get new players. But what do you think like they got to do against Frosinone tactically or personnel wise?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think given the injuries, because I think we just got word earlier today that Diego Llorente, he's out for 2 weeks. So I mean, given our few options at the back, I mean, I think we kind of have to play four at the back. And Mancini's suspended for next game. So I mean, we have what are our options back there? Cristante and and
Indica,
Indica. Is that it?
maybe you bring in Christensen to play
Yeah.
as a third center back.
Maybe Celik as well, which we haven't
Yeah.
seen him a lot this season. So maybe he's just not showing up in training. But we know that when he was at Lille, he can play on the right side of a 4-man back line and kind of play as a more defensively minded right back. But I I don't know. Like, I think it's going to be Frosinone is in good form too. I think it's going to be a really tough game on Sunday.
Uh, yes, and I agree. I
Mhm.
think Frosinone is going to be tough. But Anthony gives us a good question here, or a good point that I want to make a question out of. Is Ibanez really missed, or are we prisoners of the moment? Do you think that, like, are we really feeling it, or is there something more to it?
Hmm.
Is it
I
just go ahead?
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I haven't thought enough about it, and so I'd like your take on it. But my initial thoughts are that it's a little bit of both, but I think we did by the end of last season, we were all sick of Ibanez's really big mistakes. But as Mourinho kind of mentioned in his presser, Ibanez is incredible. Like, it's more often than not, he makes massive tackles. He's very physical, incredibly fast. He just makes bonehead mistakes sometimes, and that costs us goals. But he's not only a very talented, very physical defender, but he was well incorporated into the system. You know, he's been with us for a few years, so he kind of knew where to be and when, for the most
That's a good
part,
point.
which is something that right now only one of our starting three center backs have that. You know, Llorente only played half a season with all those injuries last year. Indica brand new. And so we're missing like a big section of our leadership and our experience. So I want to say it's a little bit of both, but I think we are missing him in a lot of different ways. What do you think, though?
Yeah, for the sake of continuity, it's true. I think there was a moment to sell him, and that
Yep,
was not last
agreed.
year, but the year before that.
I agree that. Yeah.
I think he would have gone for the same amount of money. I think Roma should have seen it in writing, kind of like his tactical misunderstandings, also his technical choices, mental lapses.
Mhm.
And now I look at a player who that I would have loved Roma to sign, like Scalvini. Scalvini is going to go for 65 million euros at
Mhm.
this point. So that ship has sailed. So it's, to me, it wasn't so much that Roma miss Ibanez, but that the sale wasn't covered. And that's supposed to be Indica, but defensively, he hasn't shown up just yet. And
Not yet.
and that's okay with young players. Anytime,
Yeah.
like you said, he was already integrated. Indica has, I don't know, 3 or 4 matches under his belt now, considering substitute appearances. So
Mhm.
it's like, it's not fair of us to just assume that Indica is going to fit automatically. But at the same
Mhm.
time, like, some of these marking errors seem rudimentary, and
Especially,
it does give me concern. And now, I mean,
yeah,
we're gonna go against a hungry Frosinone side with So what do we got? Let's line this up: Indica, Cristante, and who else? Maybe
I
Christensen or Salik. That's your back
yeah. So
three.
you're still thinking we go with 3 at the back then? 3
Yeah,
center backs?
I think so. I'm pretty sure that's what Mourinho will do. I don't think
Mhm.
we've seen enough of the four yet, and
Yeah.
given the shortage of center backs, I can't imagine that Roma runs a four. But man, that's not good in a do or die
No.
situation. This is your lineup. Like,
Yeah. No, that's
it's
why I thought a 4 at the back would have been better because we have, albeit not one who's been playing a lot this season, but we do have an extra right back that we can use, and we have, you can use either Spina or Zalewski on the left, and we only needed 2 center backs. So, using Cristante as a makeshift center back or using Celik as a makeshift center back and then having Christensen on the right. I get also still not ideal. I mean, I'm not saying this lineup is an
yeah,
all-star and much better than what you proposed, but I think it makes a little more sense in what the players are more comfortable with. And then you can still have without sacrificing too much in the midfield, right? Because I think we're both in agreement that we need to bring Cristante back for center back just for this game,
yeah.
despite him being a great Mezzala this year. And we would still have Paredes, Bove, and either Awar or Pellegrini or Dybala to fill the more attacking roles in that midfield
Yeah,
triangle.
and I think Bove can pick up the slack. I think he's got a lot of
1000%.
energy. I think he brings that bite that I often watch these young players, like Parisi right now for Fiorentina, and the kid's so hungry. And I don't really see a lot of that from Roma's
Mhm.
players. I don't know if it's
Agreed.
structural and it's like they're not allowed to get so far forward. So when you look at it as a fan, you don't realize like the intricacies, like
Mhm.
maybe it's not so apparent because they're not allowed to get up. And
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you do have attacking sides and you see the players so far up, it's like, oh wow, look how far they're pressing. Look at the spaces they occupy. But if your manager's not allowing you to do that, you don't look as good.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know if that's a little bit of it. But to my thinking though is if they did have that bite and that energy across the board, Roma wouldn't be in this position. So statistically,
Yeah.
it's checking out that.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I actually saw this take and I wanted to see what you think of it. But one person mentioned that because I think it's pretty clear that Mourinho doesn't work on instilling too many attacking tactical mindsets in training. He's more like, all right, guys, you guys know what you're doing. Go ahead and have fun in attack. That a lot of the players who are less comfortable with that, so basically anyone outside of like Awar and Dybala, and maybe Spinazzola, that when it is time to attack, they don't have like a go-to thing to do. So they kind of just take that extra second, which then holds up attacking play. I don't know if that in conjunction what you were mentioning maybe is why we just don't have that grinta, that like extra energy because there's like this hesitation almost.
Yeah, and because of that rotation, like you got a new center forward, Dybala is playing sometimes he's not.
Yeah.
And if you can't get a consistent starting 11, or let's say your consistent front three, then your chemistry will decrease. And if your chemistry decreases, then yeah, like those split seconds, they do make a difference.
Mhm.
Some coaches are like that. Like for instance, Ancelotti, now you see it a little bit where he's got his center midfielder with Bellingham getting really far up the pitch and scoring goals. But he traditionally has allowed his players to kind of, in their final third, make up their own
Mhm.
decisions and schematics rather than these hard press drills, or you'll go here and X and O's. Really, he's not so much like that. But
Which
yeah,
I think
that
that system works when you have people who are confident on the ball and can and are capable of these moments of magic, right? And with a team like Real Madrid, they're going to have lots of those. They got all the best players in the world, pretty much. I don't
Mhm.
know if Roma
Yeah,
has that same level of
you
quality,
need to be a player, a manager of personalities more
Yeah.
than a drill sergeant of anything.
Yeah.
So we've got this comment here from John, who says it's ridiculous for Mourinho that he has to work with a set of new players every season. Where's the stability? But I'm not on the same board here with John.
I'm with you and against you. Sorry, John. Against John, with you, Wayne. Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. because Roma just got killed 4-1 against, I'm going to read you the lineup.
Oh, no, please don't.
Dragusin, Boni, Vasquez, Sabelli. I think Sabelli is from Roma's Primavera. Frandrup, Badelli, Strootman, Maturo, Guamundsen, Rategui. You've got a couple quality players with Gudmundsson, who did really good for Genoa last year in Serie B, and Rategui, who is proving to be a stroke of gold for Genoa.
Yeah.
Badelli, old, straight up old, like almost ancient. I don't. Strootman, okay, yeah, he played a really good game. He had a couple good piercing passes in that space that Roma leaves between the defensive and the midfield line. But you're telling me that Roma, with the change in, let's look here, with Christensen, like that shouldn't, because Roma have Christensen added instead of Karsdorp, who's still an option. So Mourinho chose to go with Christensen, chose to go with Paredes Cristante. Paredes is, he's a new player, but he's not new to the league. He's also not new to Roma. And I have to imagine that to me, he's settled in pretty nicely or comfortably with the way that Mourinho likes to play. And with the addition of Lukaku, like, you're telling me that Roma couldn't put up a fight against Genoa?
Yeah.
Bro, like Mourinho has to take
You don't need to work on like intense attacking tactics to have those people on the field and just simply be better than Genoa. Now, obviously, we had a terrible game and Genoa had a great game. And that happens sometimes. It's like, it's the NFL any given Sunday situation where sometimes that just happens, right?
I agree.
But there's still no reason why, even with these players who might have less stability than what Mourinho is used to or what most teams like to have, there's still no reason why we should get thumped 4-1. And honestly, we didn't, other than what Mourinho said in this presser, like, we didn't really look like winning all that much, like, other than maybe when we got that goal called off and there was those moments. But
so let's go back to, like, under that same idea. Let's go back to that last season then. I think it's now only 2 wins in the last 16 Serie A matches for Roma. Like, that is such a depressing stat. Like, I can't even make that up. Like, what are we talking about? Like,
because I know at the end of last season, obviously we were kind of throwing the league a little bit just to make Europa League and all that, but
they're burnt.
But still, like, come on, guys. Not only that, if you think about how the beginning of this season, once the schedule got released, I think every Roma fan in the world was like, oh wow, thankfully we have an easy first 2 months so we can ease into the season maybe better than we have the last 2 years.
Sure.
Until we get crushed in, what is this, November, where we have like an absolutely insane schedule where we basically play every top 5 team in Italy and we have Europa League, something like that. So it's like the fact that we're sitting in 16th place with this easy of a schedule.
Yeah,
I could
16th.
Yeah.
Jeez. Let's take a look now at what Frosinone is up to. And it's a little intimidating, actually. Draw against Salernitana, who Roma also drew against. A draw against Fiorentina yesterday. Sule got a decent goal. A draw against Udinese. A big win over Sassuolo. And then a win over Atalanta in the second match day of the season there. I mean, I see a lot of different names come up on the score sheet here. Here we have Harui, Monterisi, and then I'm sure there's been a couple other different goal scorers for them, but they're playing like slick moving football. So I don't think that this is a team which should be discounted as being easy. I think Paul here says, no team is easy anymore. And that's the truth.
Absolutely.
Like, Serie A is the teams who came up are actually quite competitive. And that's ironic, or I should say, that's an outlier compared to the average season where, Empoli comes up or Brescia, they stink, they go right back down. But we're seeing that that's not the situation this year. Okay, Sven's here. And by the way, guys, I saw a bunch of people saying hello. It is nice to see everybody again, so thank you. And also, you know what to do. If you're in here for the first time, subscribe. If you are just checking in, leave a comment, like, all that good stuff. But let's get back to the comments now. And I would say Marco, we can agree that Marco called it tactically.
I was waiting for that one.
Sven says Cristante has been playing really good. One of the few positives. Agree.
Yeah.
But these players need to have a look in the mirror, and that's for sure. Anthony says Smalling maybe lost a step or two. I agree.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that he's gotten exposed in these 1v1 situations. When Roma play that low block, there's a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of times, and maybe this also has to do with the exclusion of a true defensive midfielder, in that when Smalling is, I was mentioning like how he covers that space between the lower midfield and the defensive line, is that when he is left to cover that space, now as he gets older, it's more easy to recognize that he has lost that step.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fair.
I do think it's fair. I think my only two caveats to that are that, one, we weren't seeing this at all near the end of last season. So it is a little funny that in the span of 3 months, it went from, hey, not that we didn't see it at all, but we rarely saw it the end of last season. So it's funny that in the span of like 3-4 months, we're going from Chris Smalling, best defender we've had in a very long time, to, oh, his age is showing. And then the second thing is that there was recent reports saying, yeah, he actually picked up an injury in, I forget exactly what it was. So I don't know if anyone in the comments remembers the report, but he picked up an injury in preseason that's really been nagging him pretty much all summer long, through preseason, and the first couple games of the actual season, which is why he maybe was playing so off, and he just didn't really tell anyone, or was trying to say it wasn't that serious. So tactically, you're absolutely right. Like, he has just been missing a step this season, whether that's age or this injury that he didn't reveal until just now. I think we'll have to kind of see as the season goes on.
Yeah, and you brought up that point again. Like, Chris actually, with the departure of Ibanez, he hasn't had that chemistry. He hasn't been able to truly trust his counterpart or his left center back. And with this rotation, with the right center, with Llorente or whoever it may be next to him, it also brings him a touch out. Yeah. And like we've said about the smallest movements in the final third, that split second is what makes all the difference between us looking at a defender and being like, oh, great block, versus how could he take that step out of line. And maybe the chemistry has to do with that.
Yeah, chemistry might have something to do with it. You actually mentioned it earlier, how Smalling likes to step up a little bit and kind of cover a little bit of extra space in the midfield to maybe make an aggressive interception or an aggressive header or something to try and win a 1v1 duel. And when he doesn't have someone with either the chemistry or the physicality, the speed that Ibanez has to cover that, if in the rare case he does miss it, then maybe it all just kind of leads to these defensive breakdowns that we're not used to seeing as much in the last couple of years. But I don't know.
As we look towards Sunday, we've got Lukaku, Belotti, Cristante, Bove, Paredes, El Shaarawy. So, I mean, we know that Cristante is probably going to be a center back here. And with that, how do you even set this up? Do you go two relatively similar center forwards with Belotti and Lukaku?
I think you kind of have to. Like, at what point do you stop? Do we stop overthinking the tactics and we're just saying, all right, let's play? Veronica's right. Like, maybe we just play who's healthy, play people who can run and are not going to be hurting, and hope it works.
Might be what it comes down to.
Yeah, might have to be.
Oh my gosh!
So
Sunday, I got. What time is this game on Sunday? It's going to be
2:45, I think.
Okay, so it's
late time. Yeah, late game.
Yeah. Match day 7, Roma Frosinone, October 1st, 2:45, and then we've got 3 games on Monday. I want to see a couple of them: Sassuolo, Monza, Fiorentina, Cagliari. We've got some Milan, Lazio. That's going to be a decent game. That's going to be what Atalanta, Juventus. I would love to see that, the game right before Roma's.
Yeah. Good stuff. That's the only positive, is that in both of those games, our direct, what should be our direct rivals are going to be dropping some points. So that's good. But
do you agree with Samuel here? Even if 4th position, so what?
Even if no, I'm sorry, Samuel. No, I can't agree with you there. I can't agree
Bro,
with you at all. I
I'm
think
thirsty for blood.
I had a really hard time at the end of last year trying to justify no Champions League this year because it was like the second year. It's like we are for sure getting into the Champions League. That's going to happen, and I don't think we can do a third year now. I don't know. I think we need it. I think we need it.
No, this is the capital club, man. Roma's got
Yeah.
to always be fighting for that fourth spot, third highest salary in the league, and that doesn't always translate because then you're not bringing in. Of course, Roma's transfer strategy is based around free transfers at this moment,
Yeah.
but nevertheless, you always got to be in the mix.
Yeah. I will
To
agree
say,
with
like,
Samuel there saying, there's other factors. And yes, there's a lot of factors, but I think at the end of the day, we do have to start just winning. Just got to
yeah,
win.
yeah, this is a performance-based business.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately, it's you don't get second chances in Serie A, and when it comes to fourth spot, you're talking about a starting fee of north of 50 million euros to that you get as prize money just for getting in the group stages. In the era of financial fair play, in a scenario where Roma does not keep their match day revenue because they lease their stadium, where every other team is becoming so much stronger in Serie A and the English teams are growing exponentially, every dollar counts, which is why it's so imperative that every single season Roma is in the mix for the fourth spot.
Yeah.
If the fans are ungrateful, I don't really know what that means because with Roma's results, which have been mediocre at best, they've sold out 36 games in a row. So Sam, grateful, maybe the fans on social media, you mean like with complaining?
Yeah.
As you know, I could see that, but sometimes the fans get a little bit too much on them. Some fans expect too much of what Roma can do, maybe from that perspective. But Demir is a longtime subscriber here. Good guy, Demir here. He says Genoa lost Strootman and Badelli in the 30th minute, and we still lost 3-1.
That's a really good point.
I didn't realize Strootman went out so early in that game. I saw Badelli come out. I didn't realize Strootman came out.
Mm-hmm.
So that comment actually sparked a bit of discussion here. It says, until Dybala signs that new contract, no one is safe. I would like to see, based off this season, the number of games that Dybala gets to play is a part of me. And I'm not saying, look, I want to preface this. Dybala has been one of my favorite players, if not my favorite non-Roma player since he was at Palermo. I've watched him throughout his entire career. But if I'm playing Football Manager and you got to make tough decisions, I want to know what I could get for a player who is healthy. And what is Dybala, 29?
Something like that, yeah.
Dybala, I'm going to check his age real quick. He's either 29 or 30. He's still 29.
Yeah.
Let me tell you that players really don't, when they have injuries, knee injuries, muscle injuries, ligaments, they don't improve after 30. And you could, but not in modern football where they're playing like 60 games a season. They don't have the time to rebuild like that. So I would want to know, out of curiosity, what my options are if Roma decide, or if Dybala decides to move on, and what they get for him. So Samuel also says Mourinho has right to have lows, which I agree with. Common fans be grateful. 2 finals and Mourinho is no good. Insatiable fans everywhere. Well, I agree with you that Mourinho does have a right to have lows. That just because a manager goes through a hard patch, that doesn't mean that they should be axed. Because also, let's think about this here. The cycle. Rudy Garcia, Paulo Fonseca, Di Francesco, every 2-3 years, a manager goes into a rut. Roma restart the same cycle. By year 3, their tactics get found out, and then they start again. So at what point do we maybe start to say it's not just the manager?
I think it already has. I think you already said it, right? Like, there's something that I know a lot of like Italian journalists and Roman journalists know is like ambiente Roma. Like, it's just so cutthroat. We have all these expectations as if we are, Barcelona, Real Madrid, to try and be winning everything all the time. And it's like, if you look at our history, like we're not serial winners by any means. We're always the bridesmaids, never the bride. And as much as we, you know, want and should want to win, it's just having this incredible pressure without having the resources to always win, I think really tears people down. Like you mentioned Fonseca. I think one of the funniest pictures I saw right before he left or right after he left is like what he looked like the first day he started coaching Roma, and then the last day he left. And it's like, wow, this is only like, what was it, 2 years, 3 years that he was with the club, and he aged like at least 5 to 10 in that time because of the stress and the pressure, right? So
like a president during war.
No, exactly. So how do you change the cyclical manager theme?
There's a lot of depth to that question.
There is. I think the simplest, dumbest answer I can give is you do need a little bit of luck. And I like to think to Napoli in order to do that, where Napoli last year, they get rid of their longtime captain. They get rid of one of their best players in Insigne. And they more or less gut some of their most important players. They get a new coach a couple of years ago. They sign this Georgian man that everyone was like, okay, we know he's good, but we don't know if he's going to translate well to the Italian game. They sign Kim, and these two end up being two of the best players in the league. Spalletti absolutely dominates, plays great football, and it worked for them in that year. All the stars aligned for them to be champions, right? And so maybe we need a little bit of that as well on top of all of the logical moves that the club has been making. I know we've talked about this before, Wayne, but the club's doing everything they can to sign players within their means that make sense to try and win. Signing Lukaku is an easy example, signing Dybala, the easy example. And we just have to hope that everyone meshes together well and the circumstances align, I think.
Yeah. I'm thinking about certain things you mentioned, like luck and the team having this rotation of players, and I'm thinking about all these factors in my head, right? Like I hear from the people who follow Mourinho first, like Roma does not have great players, or that Mourinho hasn't been equipped with a team that can really go and win. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
But I do get the frustration that he hasn't had a set group, and he hasn't been given players who can go in week out and week in and week out and do it. And as we sign players like Renato Sanchez and Dybala and other injury-prone players, I wonder about how it really affects the club long-term, and that the names are great, and what they do when they're on the pitch is awesome. But can true success be built around two different teams? And what I mean by that is with such a big rotation, and Pellegrini who continues to have these issues, and like you mentioned, Napoli, right? They did the hardest thing. Napoli did. You just sold your highest goal scorer on record with Mertens. You got rid of him, who I don't know how they did that. Like that, to me, that was over the top. That's even, I find myself to be radical in decisions, but that if I was being football manager, but to me, that was above like what I thought was okay. They do it. They get rid of Koulibaly. Done. You said Insigne. I don't know if Roma should take the players that have equity and start to build a base with younger players.
Okay, the younger players, yeah.
For the long term, for the next 3 years, and not just for the next year. But on the other end, I'm like, can Roma go and even get those players if they don't go and win now? So do you win now in order to get those financial incentives, or do you really take a big risk and cut your players?
Good question. That's such a good question. I think one thing that always comes to mind when you mention younger players is like, how often are we, one, selling our younger players to bigger clubs and these other players, they shine, and two, how often are we winning youth competitions? Like our Primavera team is always one of the best in Italy.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, at what point do we start implementing a system that better translates from the Primavera into the men's team, right? Like, I mean, like the classic example being Barcelona with La Masia, right? They had generations of just incredible young players that then, Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, all these guys. At what point does Roma just start saying, you know what, like you're right, maybe this cyclical nature of just getting freebies isn't sustainable. It's not good. Let's just put all of our eggs in the youth basket and hope that something comes about.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think that, and with that, the whole way that Roma does the youth idea, you've got these players, they're good, and then what happens is the majority of them get loaned out. And then they go to who knows where, under who knows which manager, who plays who knows what style of football. And how does that help Roma long term if they want to build an ethos, an identity, a way that the club actually plays? Then okay, if you want to do that, then you need a B team, which I think is Roma's main issue. Why Juventus right now, out of Juventus Next Gen, their Serie C team, they've got like 3 or 4 or 5 kids who are doing really good, and that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I think the Friedkins do want to do that with Cannes. They bought Cannes a year ago in France.
Good point.
I would like to see that be something which is arranged in that way. I would like to see more synergy between those two clubs. Rocco brings up the point in that normally these are routine wins, and normally he supports Mourinho. And I agree, right? Like, I love Jose, but these are routine wins. And you have to be honest with yourself, too, if you're a Mourinho first type of guy, and say, why is the manager who's making 10 million euros a year, one of the top 2 most paid managers in the league, why is he not able to tactically figure things out based upon the players that he has?
Yeah.
And you can't tell me it's because they're not good enough.
Yeah.
That is why a manager is brought in to figure it out.
Yep. I think it's fair. It's a fair point, Rocco.
Just looking through a couple other comments.
Sack Jose there.
Yes or no? Quick one here, Matt.
Next game, no. The game after, yes.
Yeah. True.
What do you think is the yeah?
I don't know what they do though. Like, you're paying Mourinho 10 million euros a year.
That is, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is my number one thing. Is if sacking Mourinho is going to Monchi us, it's going to make us like this in financial ruin for the next 2, 3, 4 years. Don't do it. I don't care how many games we lose, barring being relegated. I do not care. I don't want to have just like more financial ruin hanging over our heads for years to come. If I would rather have a really stinky year and, finish like Chelsea. I saw a Chelsea arc comment from Mac earlier.
Yeah.
I would rather us be in our Chelsea arc, finish 10th and be crap this year and then try again next year than to have, 3+ years of just paying off Mourinho debt. If that's what happens with sacking him. I actually don't know. I'm maybe the worst when it comes to football financials, but I don't know. What do you think? Like, what is like the maximum penalty? Right?
I agree. It's worth riding it out, because then you're gonna get a tragattatore, a caretaker. Come on, it's not realistic to think that Roma are gonna fire Mourinho, keep paying 10 million euros a year, and then sign up Conte for another 10 million. Like, that's fantasy. I don't think Roma can even get away with that financially.
No.
So Rocco mentions De Zerbi, who is like the best manager in the world right now.
Yeah, De Zerbi's he's not, his next move is not Roma. I'm sorry to break it to you guys. I know De Zerbi gets brought up a lot, but his next move is like a Real Madrid or a Barcelona. Yeah, like he's going to a top club in the world, because everyone knows he's great now. So,
but Thiago Motta, who I saw mentioned today,
that's
an interesting one. He plays some nice ball.
Yeah.
So you would like to see Xabi Alonso.
Like, would he be the top of your power rankings? You think would be?
Ooh, I like him. I like Xabi Alonso. I like Dionisi.
I'm a little skeptical about Sassuolo managers. There's something in the water there where Sassuolo managers work well in Sassuolo, and then other than De Zerbi, it's hit or miss. Like we had EDF, and he was.
I know what you mean. Yeah. System based. De Versa of Lecce is and also a very interesting manager. Paolo Zanetti, no. I think he's going to get fired from Empoli.
You think he'd want to? Italiano want to leave Fiorentina?
Yeah, I would take Italiano. I would. I think Italiano is a really good manager.
Yeah,
he also plays with a low block, explosive counterattacks. I think that the team, if they do continue to acquire players for a counterattacking side, then he would be a nice transition if Roma's management want to continue with that theme. You could
Would be
say
a
he
smart
plays a
thing.
bit more nuanced. There's a little bit more to it. But yeah, I think that could work. That could definitely work.
I agree.
I think he's got a good personality too. Demir doesn't think that the Friedkins will sack Mourinho. Only goes out if he resigns. Can't get worse. And give a like. Yes.
Give a like for sure. Can't get worse. We'll see.
Yeah. Leo says if the Friedkins fired Mourinho, they will get Conte, and like we were saying, they could go and then go get Mota, Thomas Frank, who I don't know enough about.
Yeah,
but De Rossi 2027 now. Yeah, De Rossi's got to go through the ranks.
Gotta get his levels first.
You know, he's gotta work his way up and find out how to become a great manager. I'm not saying he can't be. I'm just saying he's got to go and.
I would rather him go through the ranks slowly than try and force it in like Pirlo did.
Yeah, because it's not working out like for Pirlo. He's gonna get fired from Sampdoria.
Yeah, no, he's doing bad there too. No.
Yeah, he's not doing good at all.
Oh, poor guy.
I know. Anyway, I'm just reading a bunch of comments about Conte, but Xabi Alonso. So think of Bayern Leverkusen, and they're playing in this way, which is super risky. They don't like using the keeper. They like recycling possession from the midfield line, getting players high up, utilizing two attacking midfield wingers. They're like these two alas, like I guess like the way Al Shaarawy plays would be really effective, and Dybala, true wingers like that, take very offensive positions. That would have been something. And yeah, of course, Paul. Paul is from
Jersey,
Clifton. Yeah,
okay.
Where Giuseppe Rossi's from.
Oh, there we go. Of course, you got to get.
Yeah. No, I would have loved that. I've met Giuseppe.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, like 10 years ago.
Is he a nice guy?
My friend's his agent, so I hope to meet him again soon.
That's wild.
Wit Junkie says, guys, please, before talking about firing Jose, look at United and Spurs. We need to be like Liverpool, give Klopp time.
Yeah. Someone was mentioning that on the WhatsApp today of like, just look at what happens to the teams that Moo's left recently. It's not like Moo leaves and all the problems are solved, which I would agree with. I don't think if we do fire Moo, there's no way that we just immediately hire a new manager and everything goes well. There's obviously could be terrible, but at some point, I think the main thing, this is the last thing I'll probably say about the Moo sacking, if at all, but it's like, if there comes a time where both him and the club are no longer having this joyous moment together, it might just be best for both people to move on. No cynicism, no animosity, just sometimes the time needs to be right. To just move on.
It's true. And like, I always say, like, Mourinho's plan B is so far removed from his plan A. And the players have not done a great job at allowing him to go out and play plan A.
Yeah.
So I'm just posting a link here on Thomas Frank on how he approaches top 6 teams. If you want to see that in the link, I just posted that. I'm going to watch that after the stream here. But Rocco brings up this point. It's also the sporting director. We need an Italian sporting director. You need someone who understands the landscape and which type of players can adapt. Monchi and Pinto have failed. So Rocco and I think both have nightmares how Davide Fratesi is no longer a Roma player,
right,
and could not come back. And Rocco often makes the point, like, how could Pinto have let him get away? How could he have not gotten this over the line? And I want to believe that it's due to numbers, but I also like feel that frustration, and I'm like, yo, that player could have really changed the way that Roma played. Okay, he would have sacrificed Bove, maybe. I don't know, but I'm looking at Fratesi right now, and I'm like, this dude's top 10 number 8s in the game in soccer right now, in football. So
yeah, it's always hindsight 2020. Hindsight is 2020 though. So I agree. Obviously, Fratesi, that one stings a lot, but it's always hard when, last year Fratesi had one good season and they're like, we need 30 mil, and Roma wasn't really in a position to give up 30 mil. And now we're seeing, okay, he is worth that, but I think it was quite the risk, which I understand why Pinto was hesitant to pull the trigger on, for sure. You sleep.
Roma are hurting. And
we can all agree on that.
I had this banner. And we covered a lot of this. So I think we could agree that tactically Roma's spaces are affected by player by Smalling not being there, by Matic not being there. Tactically, that needs to get figured out. Injuries definitely affect this club. Technically, I think the players, not each player on every single match day, have shown up to play. And I think that we can say that it's not just one scapegoat. It's not just Mourinho. It's not just Rui Patricio. It's not just bad luck, right? But it's like this perfect storm of stink.
Yeah.
Roma stinking.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something a lot worse, but this
Keeping it PG
episode
for the
is
fans. So if you had to do a power rankings of these three, which of the three would you say is the most concerning right now between tactics, technicality, and injuries?
I think it's tactical. I know that's probably like the thing which is going to upset most Mourinho supporters.
Yeah.
But I think that the team is not built to be three at the back. I think that these players are so much more comfortable playing on a mid press, getting further up the pitch. Zalewski is not a left back. He's a left wing back or even a left winger.
Yeah.
El Shaarawy loves to get up. Karsdorp loves to get up. Salik, even in France, I believe he used to play a bit more two-way. He was a bit more of a two-way right back. So I look at these wing backs and I'm like, why aren't they playing 4 across? Smalling's better in a 4. Mancini, I don't know. He could probably do a little bit of everything. Llorente definitely better in a 4. Paredes better in a 4. Cristante also. Pellegrini better as the attacking mid in a midfield triangle. Alward could step in place because Pellegrini has so many injuries at this point in time. The team is built to play a 4-2-3-1, and yet there is so much space between the midfield and the defensive line.
Yep.
And I think that's got to get resolved. I think it's got to get fixed quick, or Roma's going to continue to leak in goals. I also think that the keeper is a serious issue. And people will jump on Rui Patricio, and I don't ever want to make a habit of being like, it's this player, and we need to blame this. But the amount of individual errors is staggering, and it's not at the level of Serie A. It's not enough.
Agreed. And he just doesn't look confident this year at all. He does not look comfortable back there. I don't think he's commanding the back line like he did in the first couple seasons here. It just, something looks really off with him. It's probably his age, but it just looks not it. But I agree.
Hopefully he figures it out. I think Mourinho brings a lot to this team, attitude-wise, familial-wise, getting them to stick together.
Yeah.
He speaks to the press because nobody else at Roma does, because I don't know, the Freakins haven't hired me to talk to the news outlets yet, unfortunately.
Not yet.
I'm still living in Jersey City, but I wouldn't mind a nice little palazzo in Rome. But man, it's tough, guys. But right in your concerns, what do you guys think it is? Let's post that question to the group. What is, out of these 3 things, these 3 entities, or is there something we're missing? Is it tactical? Is it Mourinho? Is it technical with the players? Or is it injuries? The fact that Roma can't get a string of the same guys lining up on each and every single match, right? Like, there is no continuity. Kevin says, does Jose keep playing Rui when he's so bad? He keeps picking him. I don't know what the other option is. Like, Svilar is
not ready.
I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, exactly. I did like how, Svilar got that the game against Sharif. I thought that was nice, get him warmed up. He didn't look too terrible. He clearly looked inexperienced, but maybe 5 good games. I don't know. That's fair. That's a little harsh, but
Paul thinks tactical, so he agrees.
I pretty much every word that came out of your mouth, Wayne, I agree with. I think it's just hard to admit that it's tactical, because I think as soon as you say it's a tactics problem, all of the move out people think you're on the move out train. It's like, no, I just think that is maybe the area that needs the most emphasis right now.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. And like I know Roma play great when they have all their players. Mourinho's plan A is phenomenal.
Hmm.
Mourinho's plan A got them to 2 European finals
Hmm.
back to back. Should have won both of them. Like,
Hmm.
and they played awesome. But this isn't plan A. And that's why we're in this position.
Yeah. Always
Like,
present.
man, is there any type of salvation? There is always the next game in front of you. And when you get on a string of victories, it makes all the problems subside. So there is a chance of salvation for
Absolutely.
sure. You mend that relationship. The fans in Rome, they love Mourinho. Fans around the world are support. Nobody wants Roma to lose.
Hmm.
And what way to get over that hump but by actually winning.
Hmm.
So
I think if I could just really quickly on that, I really thought that the doom and gloom would end after Empoli because
mhm.
we absolutely thumped them. I was like, okay, this is our moment now, or our season starts now. And I think what worries me the most is that we haven't built on that momentum at all. It's swung the other way. Sure, you could say maybe it's fatigue because since that win, we've played so many games. It's a short amount of time. It's tough to see when you have that. Personally gave me a lot of expectations. I don't know how you felt about it, but I really thought that we were going to start flying from there. So,
I did too. I was thinking, I was like, when I was away, I was like, I really want to stream because I feel like there's going to be so much like positivity and energy
hmm.
around the live streams right now because Roma's going to get on a string of like 4 wins in a row.
Hmm.
Everyone's going to be pumped up. But Wit Junkie has a good question here. Says if it's tactical, how should Roma play without the ball? If you can't play a mid block if you don't have faster defenders, well, I think that the mid block should be protected with actually a slightly lower mid block of a 2.
Hmm.
So the double pivot. Now, you see a lot of single pivots in football today with like Casemiro. He's a single pivot. Much of it flows through him for United. But if Roma were to resolve, I guess resolve
That's a word.
to a 4-man back line, then the 2-man back line could be able to fill in that space, whether that's with Paredes and Cristante. Now you're going to say they're not fast, but Bove is fast.
Always
Bove,
fast.
Bove is a
Works hard.
faster player. Why couldn't he be the guy who plays a little bit deeper? Why
Hmm.
couldn't the team be a little bit more compact? But that's saying that Roma do adopt a mid line, and I don't think they're ever going to do that. He's never played like that. They're not going to do that. But I do think that the structure of the team and the attributes of the players are much more made, not tailor made, but definitely much more comfortable and accustomed to the players' skill sets that Roma have in a 4-man back line with 2 defensive midfielders helping each other out in the double, with wingers who have a higher work rate, drop Dybala in the hole, drop Dybala as a false 9, or in some games, get him behind Lukaku, and then I think you can really start to make a dent. But the
Hmm.
hell do I know?
Yeah. Well, actually, just to add to that, 'cause I think you know a lot more than you give yourself credit for. But what Junkie did mention, that's what we did at the second half of the game. That's what we conceded 2 goals. But I think it is different when you're forced to play like that on a whim because of injuries and substitutions, or because of injuries and their substitutions, versus actually working it out in training and getting the system settled. Again, maybe it doesn't work, but it's a lot harder to do it in the middle of a game than it is to implement your training sessions.
Matt, we've got a good question here. I think we're going to wrap it up there because I've
Absolutely.
taken up way too much of your time.
No, it's
Give me
always a
your
pleasure.
starting 11. You
Starting
can.
11.
I'm
All
going to
right.
write mine
I'm
down while
going.
you're talking.
Yes, of course. I'm going, obviously, Rue at the back. I would say Zalewski, left back, Cristante, Indica, center backs, Chelik on the right, Paredes, Brian in the middle. And we're going 4-2-3-1 here.
Mhm.
Paredes, Brian in the middle. Elsha on the left, Dybala on oh. Oh. Wait a second. Okay, Elsha on the left, Dybala behind Lukaku and Belotti. Never mind about the right winger. It's more like a 4-2-2-2, I guess.
Yeah.
Or a 4-2-2-2. Let's go with that.
4-2-2-2. So
It won't happen because that makes no. Now that I've said it, it makes no sense. The Mourinho would never do that. But that's the healthiest
I'm
lineup,
trying to
I
make
think.
mine as well. I'm looking at my right wing in a 4-2-3-1, and I'm like, I don't got a right wing.
I was about to say Solbakken, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
He's in Greece right now.
Yeah. But then also the issue I run in here with is if I have Dybala in the hole, then where do I put Aouar? Do I put him as a center defensive mid? Because he's not a defensive mid.
I wonder if you do like maybe instead of one striker, so either Lukaku or Belotti. I would assume Belotti because he's probably more rested. But if you have Aouar and Dybala both, one is technically a right winger, but you kind of play him the way that Mu played Eto'o when there was at Inter, where it was technically on the right, but more of like an inverted winger type. I wonder if you could do that with Aouar, who seems to have a little bit more experience with that this season. And you just have Dybala more central.
Yeah.
Because what were you drawing up? What were you concocting over there?
I was thinking Karsdorp on the right, Smalling, Llorente, Spinazzola, and then
no Llorente's hurt.
This would be like if everyone's fit.
Oh, if everyone's fit. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, go
ahead. But then I've got Renato next to Paredes. But then like Cristante's been so good, so maybe you take out Paredes for Cristante, and then you got Renato. Then Aouar ahead of him. I don't know. I don't know if the 4-2-3-1 actually could work, but maybe you have Dybala on the right, give him less defensive responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Again, and he can invert too, so he has that in his arsenal.
It's tough.
Because I think we've seen Mu with other teams play with and most top managers do this, but they take a classical formation and then they, based on the way the players are moving, it ends up not looking like that. And so I think you're right. You might have to play one or two players out of position slightly, but you have them in transition play their comfortable positions. I still think we could make that work. Like I still think if we have like Elsha on the left, like you're saying, Aouar and Dybala in the hole, and then Lukaku up top with either Paredes and Cristante or Paredes, Cristante, or Paredes, Renato, or even the Renato Cristante if we really need to attack. I think all of those kind of work. You can kind of, depending on the situation and what you're trying to get across, could those not work well?
No, I think they would. I think they've got the technical ability to go out there, and they're just quality players. Like they're at that level where they're going to take over the game because they, regardless of like almost how much they played together or practiced, they're just at a different level.
Agreed.
Here we've got one from Joe. Cicero says Mancini and Ndika. Wow, Ndika there. Okay. Spina, Paredes, Cristante, Renato, El Shaarawy, Dybala, Lukaku. So I'm guessing that's the two up top, 3-2-1. Yeah, that works.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Do you have an extra player? No, you don't. Okay, that's good.
Paredes, Cristante, Renato.
And you just have Paredes behind, and then you have Cristante, Renato as your two mezzala, Joe? Does that make? Or maybe the other way around.
Yeah, he's got Paredes on the right, Cristante holding, Renato on the left, and then El Shaarawy on the right wing. Maybe no. El Shaarawy, I guess, on the left wing, Dybala on the right wing. Yeah, that's a pretty good lineup.
I could see that working. Yeah.
I like it. On that note, I think Joe's got the best formation.
All right, Joe, you win.
All right, guys. Joe. Before we leave, you know what to do. Thanks. Like I said, send it like to Reddit, other places. I'm actually banned from Reddit from posting. I have no idea why.
All right, I got you.
I think I posted like a video once, and I was like, "Hi guys, I made a YouTube," and like I got banned like over a year ago.
Where did you? Was this on like our soccer or our football or
Roma's Reddit, whatever it is? Like just if you Google it, whatever it takes you to. But oh man, today's Friday. Saturday, tomorrow, we'll have a recorded video, which will be a preview of the Frosinone match. We'll take a look at who's injured, who's the probable starting formations, what Frosinone's squad had been up to, a little bit more in depth. But thank you, Matt. And we'll talk soon, all right?
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Always a pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Peace, guys. Thank you.